Hi, I am Rashani DeBell, and you are learning algebra.
Hi, welcome back. In part 1 of our lesson, we looked at the properties of quadratic functions and some of the key concepts we need in order to graph a quadratic function. We also looked at an example of graphing a quadratic function that had a positive a value or a positive leading coefficient. In part 2 of this lesson, we are going to learn how to graph a quadratic function that has a negative a value or a negative leading coefficient. So let's get started. In example number 2, we are asked to sketch the graph of y equals negative x squared plus 2x minus 1. Let us start by identifying our a, b, and c values. A is always numbered by x squared. In this case, it is a negative 1. B is our number by x, which is 2, and c is our constant, which is negative 1. I'm going to take a look at my a value. Notice in this a value, it is a negative 1, which means my parabola is going to open down. It looks like the letter N. And my vertex, my highest point on my graph, would be right over here on the top of my parabola. To find my x vertex, I'm going to use the formula negative b divided by 2a. So my x vertex is negative times 2 divided by 2 times negative 1. This is negative 2. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. Therefore, my x vertex is located at x equals 1. My axis of symmetry is going to be a vertical line that goes through x equals 1. I'm now going to find my y vertex. To find my y vertex, I take the value that I found for my x vertex, which is 1, plug it into my original equation, and simplify. So I have y vertex is negative times 1 square plus 2 times 1 minus 1. 1 square is 1 times a negative is a negative 1. Positive 2 times 1 is positive 2 minus 1. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. So my y vertex is located at 0. This means that my vertex is located at x equals 1 and y equals 0. I'm going to plot it over here. At x equals 1, y equals 0, we are here. And since this is a negative quadratic function, this is going to be the highest point on my graph, and this graph or parabola is going to go down, forming the letter N. Step 3 is to make a table of values. Since I know parabolas are symmetric, I'm going to make my life simpler by choosing points on one side of my axis of symmetry, and then reflecting it across the axis of symmetry to get my parabola. I always like to choose the side that has the 0 in it. So in this example over here, I'm going to choose the left side of my axis of symmetry and choose points from the x-axis over here to evaluate. So I'm going to start by creating my table. And for my table, for my x values, I'm going to choose on the left side of 1 is going to be 0, negative 1, and negative 2. So I'm going to write it in numerical order from least to greatest. And I'm going to evaluate that. So for x equals negative 2, I'm going to take negative 2, plot it into my original equation. And don't forget that this is a negative over here. So I'm actually going to write it as negative 1 times negative 2 squared plus 2 times negative 2 minus 1. Negative 2 squared is 4. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Positive 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 minus 1. Negative 4 minus 4 is negative 8. Minus 1 gives me negative 9. At x equals negative 1, we have negative 1 times negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 1. Negative 1 squared is 1 times the negative 1 is negative 1. Positive 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 minus 1. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. At x equals 0, we have negative 1 times 0 squared plus 2 times 0 minus 1. 0 squared is 0 times the negative 1 is just 0, plus 2 times 0 is 0, minus 1. 0 plus 0 is 0, minus 1 gives me negative 1. Finally, let's plot and connect. We start at x equals negative 2, y is equal to negative 9. So it's right down here. At x equals negative 1, y is equal to negative 4. At x equals 0, y is equal to negative 1. I'm going to take these points and reflect it across my axis of symmetry. So this point over here at x equals 0, y equals negative 1 is 1 away from the axis of symmetry. So on the other side, it should be 1 away from the axis of symmetry. This point over here at x equals negative 1, y is equal to negative 4 is 1, 2 away from the axis of symmetry. So across the axis of symmetry is going to be 1, 2. Point of x equals negative 2, y equals negative 9 is 1, 2, 3 away from the axis of symmetry. So I can go 1, 2, 3. And now let's connect our points. And here's our graph of y equals negative x squared plus 2x minus 1. Notice that this graph opens down because our a value over here is a negative, and our vertex is located at x equals negative 1 and y equals 0.
And there you have it. That is our lesson on graphing quadratic functions. Have a great day.